Hello and welcome to the Musical Instrument Investigator. It's been a little while since my last video because I've been a bit busy, but today we're on the website of Brompton's Auctions, one of the leading UK auction houses regarding bowed stringed musical instruments, and they have one of their latest sales up, which is one of their high-end ones. Those of you that are familiar with the kind of the UK auction scene for fine bowed stringed instruments, you'll know that in October you always have the main auctions, so Brompton's, Amati, Ingalls and Hayday, Teresio, etc., and they're all kind of open for viewings in London actually this weekend, so I'll be kind of viewing some of those. But yeah, the Brompton's catalogue's been up now for a couple of days. The auction finishes on the 28th of October, so I thought it might be nice just to kind of have a quick overview of this, nothing too crazy. If you haven't been on this channel before, we just take a quick overview of the auction, see if there's anything interesting, and just kind of a few comments here and there, nothing too crazy. I'm not an expert, I'm just kind of having a look for my own enjoyment. So yeah, this auction is a UK based, so if you're outside of the UK, bear that in mind, import, export fees, etc. Do remember, for an auction there are buyer's premiums, so if you buy you need to pay a percentage of the final hammer price on top. For Brompton's it's 20%. It does go down to 18 if you end up winning, so bear that in mind. Teresio have the same kind of thing, so lots of bows, violins, violas, cellos in this auction, etc. Bear in mind stuff like CITES as well, if it's got kind of tortoiseshell or ivory, etc., might be difficult to ship outside of the UK, or even impossible potentially. So yeah, that's about it really. If you do enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing, comment, turn on notifications, all of that stuff, because it does really help. And any comments welcome. Do let me know if I make any mistakes, of which there'll probably be a lot. So anyway, we've gone on way too much, but I'm going to carry on now and look at the auction. If I missed anything and you want my comments on it, just let me know in the comment section and I'll let you know what I think. So whole load of bows here. Like I said, I'm not going to go into every lot. Sometimes people like it if I look at every lot, other people hate it and they just want me to kind of look at specific things. Who knows what people want? I don't, so I'm just gonna have a look of my own interest. So just taking an overview, got some violin bows here, hill bows. They're in every single English auction. There'll be multiple hill bows here for sure. We can already see a few coming up. Silver mounted violin bow, Richard Weichhold, Nürnberger bows. You'll see a lot of really good German bows, and you'll see obviously a lot of French bows as well. So another hill bow here, Albert Leeson, so one of the named makers, another Nürnberger there. Gold mounted violin bow attributed to Francois Nicolas Vorin there. Got some JTL French bows there, which can actually be quite good. These JTL ones, a good way to get a kind of a budget French bow. And they've got a Penzel there, Derschmidt. These are kind of workshop bows here. Moving on to something a bit more fancy, so we've got a Eugene Sartre there, 12 to 18,000. So one of the kind of really important French makers of that kind of I think early 20th century period, or around that kind of way. So you expect these to be fairly kind of expensive. Obviously if you're looking for a bow or an instrument or anything and you're a player, then definitely go and kind of play them at the viewing days, or get someone to play it for you if you can't attend. If you're buying for whatever collection, for being a collector or something, then once again check it. And if you're not a luthier yourself, take someone with you. Always worth doing. They've got some loose condition report stuff here. Stick good, handle with some wear, frog good with some minor wear, button that might not be original to the bow, which would obviously affect the value. So it's all worth checking. I'm sure you can get better or kind of more full condition reports if you kind of request them. So worth bearing all of this in mind. Nicolas Milline, another good French maker there. Some more Bazin. We've got a Arthur Bultitude bow here, like one of the hill makers. Kind of did his own thing afterwards. 1500 to 2000 there. Let's see what else we got here. More Vorin here, Usha. Good James Tubbs, like one of the best English makers, and a gold mounted one here. Ferrell engraved with the inscription presented to A. Earnshaw by James Tubbs and Sons, 1897. It's got a Raffin certificate, actually, or the Cabinet des Archetiers, which has Raffin on the board. Interesting, you don't see many kind of bow certificates from kind of English experts, so it's kind of weird you get these kind of English bows with French certificates, but anyway, that's a conversation for another time. Piano there, Bazaar stuff, Derschmidt, Bazaar, Finkel, so Swiss bow there, you know, all kind of interesting stuff, nothing too crazy. So we've got a violin by Nicolas Augustin Chapuis here, Paris circa 1750. I really like the work of Chapuis, actually, personally. This one, very long length of back though, 365. You can request a condition report, but in general I like this kind of French period of making, kind of mid 18th century, mainly for aesthetics periods, reasons even. Right, a rare violin by John Commins, London, 1801. 5 to 7 on this. Sold with certificate of James Croft, Winnipeg. Okay, interesting. From 1945. 357 length of back. Commins was a pupil of William Forster, whose influence is clearly seen in this violin. Yeah, I think this is probably interesting for people that like English instruments. Not a maker I've ever heard of, to be very honest, other than in this auction, so that's kind of an interesting thing to see, but otherwise I don't really have any comments. Lupo school violin there, 3 to 5, Miracle 1820, that's quite nice looking there, 354. So we're not going to look at everything, otherwise we'll be here forever, because there's 280 kind of plus items around. So we've got a higher level one here, a violin by Michael Decanet, Venice, circa 1765. Interesting back on that. Nice scroll. 354. It's got a certificate from David Hill there from 2013, confirming that it went through the Hill shop in 1902. So that's kind of interesting. Violin was a property of the late Guido Lamel, violinist with the LA Philharmonic. Okay, interesting. You can also hear it being played here. So that's interesting. This Decanet's interesting maker that I think is kind of confusing people for a while, of exactly kind of if this was a maker, an individual maker, or someone that was collecting instruments from different workshops and kind of selling them as like a kind of a roving tradesman or something. I'm not sure that question was necessarily 100% answered yet. Maybe it has been and I've just not read up on it, but an interesting maker anyway. If anyone has any comments on that maker, please feel free to comment. Violin by Francois Vial, Monaco, 1925. 5 to 8 on that. It's quite nice wood there for the back. 357 length of back. Hard to see kind of arching and things on these pictures, so it's definitely worth looking at in person. I said I don't want to look at everything, otherwise that would just be getting a bit annoying, but quite nice varnish on this French violin there. 2 to 3. Joseph Lett, Nantes, 1831. It's Heberlein, we can skip that. Violin probably by Johannes J. Bolzano, circa 1770. A nice looking instrument there. It's pretty cool. 352 length the back. Soundpost cracking back with patch. It's 3 to 5,000, so worth bearing in mind. You can see there's a big kind of crack up there, so obviously that affects the value and might need more attention in the future, so it could be an additional cost. Right, a violin by Vincenzo Postiglione, Naples, 1875, 25 to 40,000 of that. Certificate Dimitri Gindin is like one of the experts on modern Italian violins. 358 length of back, yeah, lovely bit of wood for the back. So, Another interesting one there. Violin probably by Nicolas Francois Viola, Brussels, 1870. 10 to 15 on that. It's kind of interesting scroll actually on that. Violin by Real Puglisi, Catania, 1921. Do you see quite a lot of violins coming out of Catania actually. Violin attributed to Gaetano Garda, Mantua, circa 1950. Won't get into the Garda situation. Violin Klotz family, circa 1770. Violin by Henry Lockie Hill, London, circa 1830. One of the early Hill family makers. Really nice instruments actually. 3 to 5 is quite. I think that's really quite a great price for a really good English violin there. 3 to 5. I think that's really quite fair. 350 length the back. Yeah, one of the really kind of to think one of the nice English makers personally. Violin by Giuseppe Fiorini, Munich, 1891, 70 to 100,000. Popular maker. Once again, you can see the video there. Viome School Violin. Go past that for now. A violin by Luca Maria Gallo, Cremona, 1991, 5 to 8 on that. Interesting certificate from Ladislav Prokop, 2014. Interesting. Derazi, that's popular, but we'll skip that. Jean-Baptiste Chipote Viome, not the same as the other Viome. An interesting violin after Guarneri, second half of the 19th century, 15 to 20,000. Okay, so sold with certificate of Joseph Vedral, Amsterdam, 1940, attributing the violin to Giuseppe Marconcini there, 356. Right, a violin by Bernard Simon Fent II, London, circa 1830, 12 to 18. Definitely one of the really nice English makers. Although I believe the family originally from Fussen in Germany, then later in France, and then into London in over a long extended period of time. But yeah, nice looking violin, 358 length the back. Paris School, Paul Sedert. Does look like this is probably quite nice. I'm not a massive fan of French violins from this period in general, but that does actually look quite nice there, 5 to 8, so interesting. Violin probably by Armando Altavilla, Naples, circa 1910, 6 to 9, nice bit of wood on the back there. Right, Marchand. We'll just skip some of this for now. Violin by Enrico Rocca, Genoa, 1915, 90 to 120,000. One of the most kind of important makers, I guess, of the 20th century. There, no bids so far. It's got an Eric Blott certificate. He's the other expert on modern Italian violins. Violin by Matthias Albani, Bolzano, 1697, 15 to 20,000 on that. No bids yet. Nice scroll on that. Actually a nice looking violin in general. Some marks there in the soundpost area. Let's see. Violin previously sold by Sotheby's in 1997. Interesting. Condition report available on request there. Charles Enel. Another one of the kind of staple London makers, Robert Thompson, 1750. Looks fairly kind of typical there. Some more French stuff here. We'll just go past that for now. Violin by Plinio Michetti, Savona, 1924. Some of this stuff I think we've probably seen before in the past. It's hard to remember. A few of these we're just going to go through. A violin by Goffredo Cappa Saluzzo, circa 1690, 20 to 30,000 on that. Definitely curious. I always find it interesting that the Kappas are not sometimes, well, I guess it's condition dependent, but are not going for crazy money, which is interesting. Condition report on request, so it'd be interesting for that kind of estimate. I presume there's some kind of issues going on there. Violin, probably Italian, circa 1830, 6 to 8,000. 363 length of back. I like, that's a cool scroll. I like these kind of mystery instruments, they're a bit more interesting. Curious bit of wood for the back. That's kind of one of my main interests, really, is some interesting wood. Okay, we've got a violin from Tokyo. I wonder if we've saw this one before in one of the previous auctions. Looks kind of familiar. By Suguo Toyoshima, Tokyo, 2007. Yeah, we definitely seen this before, actually. Somewhere, I don't know if this auction, but somewhere with this kind of heavy wear on the scroll. Yeah, I quite like it. It's interesting. Violin by Antonio Pedrinelli Crispano, 1827, 15 to 20,000 on that. Kind of slightly interesting outline. Violin Jorio School, Naples, circa 1830, 8 to 12 on that. That also looks kind of familiar. Violin, probably Tyrol, circa 17 to 70. Wow, that is some pretty wonky F holes. That's actually some of the wonkiest F holes I think I've seen in a while. So that is pretty curious. Violin by Didier Nicholas Ain, Mirgor, 1830. Now, this is actually kind of an interesting topic for discussion. Some people, or a person on Maestronet was kind of raising about this, that this doesn't look like it's not a real Didier Nicholas Ain because there's no pins on the back, and there was a big discussion and argument, and I think it's a bit of a kind of grey area where, you know, after his death, like his sons carried on the work, and there was workshops, and then the name got passed on in Mirgor to someone else that had the rights, so things were still labelled kind of this same label, à la Ville de Cremone de Nicholas Ain or Aine, whatever it is. So yeah, a bit of a kind of grey area, but model kind of looks correct and all of that stuff. So it's, you know, it's was it made directly by Didier Nicholas Ain? Possibly not, but then some of the other ones that would look exactly like his work may also not have been made by him, a bit like the Violin workshop where, you know, Violin wasn't making all of the output, he had people working for him. So it's a bit of a weird grey area, but I thought it was curious enough. The violin itself, not super interesting. Violin by Enrico Marchetti, Turin, circa 1915, 25 to 35,000 on that. That we've definitely seen before, but pretty cool violin. Violin Circle of Sebastian Klotz there, Mittenwald, 8 to 12. Let's just have a quick look at the back on that. We'll carry on a bit, so we're not going to look at everything. Violin Scarabotto School, circa 1920, 4 to 6. Okay, wrong one. Let's carry on. Violin, second half of the 19th century after Guarneri, 2.5 to 4. A lot of these things, they're not really enticing me for the estimate. It seems a bit high potentially for me, but curious to see how this auction goes. Violin by Giovanni Tedesco, Naples, circa 1905. Violin by Anselmo Coletto, Turin, 1949, after Guadagnini, 15 to 20 on that. Violin by Remedio Muncher, Cremona, 1927. Definitely seeing a lot of stuff repeated here. Violin by Gesaldo Averna, Caltanisetta, 1921. Yeah, we're getting a lot of similar stuff here. Violin by Domenico Corbucci, Castello, circa 1870. Pretty cool scroll though on that. Slightly interesting work otherwise. 349 length of back. Violin Grancino School, Milan, circa 1750. 18 to 25 on this. 354 length of back. Pretty cool scroll. Yeah, interesting one. A nice flame on the back. So yeah, curious. Paul Bailly, Paris, 1900. Beautiful piece of wood on the back there. Looks like the button has been repaired. Potentially there's something going on at the button there. But, another Kappa, violin by Goffredo Kappa, Saluzzo, circa 1690, 80 to 120,000, a bit more like we were expecting. Quite a different model actually, this one. Really interesting piece of wood there on the back. Yeah. Onto some bows here. Let's see if we can skip down a bit past some of these. Viola bows, Henri Guillet there. Moison, that's Watson. English bow, Lot, Moison Frère, Callier, Mirko, JTL. Howard Green, a silver mounted viola bow by Howard Green. Let's have a look at that. 1,000 to 1,500. It's got a bid already. Then we're on to some violas. The X Hammer, a fine Italian viola, circle of Enrico Catena, Turin, circa 1690. So 407 length the back. It's pictured in Walter Hammer's book actually, so that's interesting. Great scroll there. That's a really interesting back as well. So it's quite curious how these instruments, you know, get switched around over time to different owners there. No bids on it so far. Viola by Luca Branchetti, Pistoia, 2013. 2 to 3. It's got a bid already. 411 length the back there. This Ballantine viola I'm pretty sure we've seen already on a previous auction. Right, viola by Riccardo Antinazzi, Milan, 1909. Or Antognazzi, more like. Working on the pronunciation there. We'll get there. 1 year, 408 length of back. Another really regarded modern or ish maker. 40 to 50 on that. A viola after Degani, 2 to 4. No bids on that so far. That's definitely got some interesting traits. Quite deep fluting, I think. 417, good size. Viola, circa 1750, 4 to 6. This is a great looking instrument. 390, it's a little bit smaller. Yeah, interesting scroll there. I love these kind of F-holes. Really, really kind of odd positioning. I think that's really, really quite interesting. Like the back on that as well. Yeah, really, really curious. That very cool. Viola by Domenico Rossi, Piacenza, circa 1900. This actually is very nice. I like these, quite like these fine F-holes, 20 to 30 on that. Aesthetically, I think it's quite curious. Viola, possibly Trieste School, circa 1880. 419 length of back. Viola by Nicholas Violin, Miracle, 1850, 15 to 20,000 on that. Viola by George Craske, London, circa 1850, 6 to 8. I do like a good Craske viola. I think I've said it before in a few videos. I prefer the Craske violas to the violins, I think. 401 length of back, that's not too bad. Viola by Carlo Carletti, Pieve di Cento, 1920. Do feel like we've seen this one before as well. 18 to 25 on that. Viola by Carlo Vittori, Florence, 1977. 8 to 12. Viola attributed to Giovanni Pistucci, Naples, 1901. A lot of this stuff looking very familiar. Viola by Giovanni Battista Marassi, Cremona, 1977, 25 to 40. Another highly regarded maker there. Another viola, Tyrol, 1780, 5 to 7. This was the main viola of Maestro Ferraguzzi, teacher of violin and viola at the Conservatoires of Bolzano, Venice and Milan. Okay, interesting. Another viola here by Bernard Samuel Fenton II, London, circa 1825. So very nice English viola there, 389 length of back. Quite a lot of good violas in this auction actually. Viola possibly by Giovanni Battista Bodio, Venice, circa 1810, 25 to 35. That is a wide instrument. That is very wide. I wonder if that may be quite uncomfortable for some to play, but I like that. It's a nice looking instrument though. I do, aesthetically it is pretty interesting. Right, viola, possibly Italian, like 1700, 6 to 9. It's good to see so many violas in this auction. It's, some interesting stuff going on the back of that. That's slightly curious. Some post-cracking table. Right, on to some bows here. Let's go back to our main page because I think we can probably be a bit more brutal on the bow front here. But we've got some cello bows here. Vigneron, Bryant there, Pajot School, Prosper Colas, Houchard. So we should have a quick look at this. Silver mounted cello bow by Emile Auguste and Emile Francois Houchard, 15 to 20,000 on that. In very good condition. 15 to 20 they're looking for that. Some more is on there. Bow by Charles Nicolas Bazin for Pacat there. Got a silver and ivory mounted cello bow by William C. Retford, 5 to 7, one of the really good English makers. 4.5 they want for that, so it's kind of interesting there. Ivory, a bit of a complicated one for travelling, so not necessarily advised, but probably a very good bow. Let's have a look at this John Dodd here, one of the very good English makers there, 4 to 6. Frog possibly later. Yeah, it's interesting head on that. Got Nürnberger there, Hills, Lapierre. Now we're on to some cellos there. Let's have a look. Cello Circle of Giovanni Battista Cerruti, first half of the 19th century, 50 to 80 on that Gindin certificate. Cello by Stefano Cogna, Cremona, 2023. Right, cello by Peter Walmsley, London, 1727, one of the really quite early, fairly early English makers actually. Peter Walmsley, so definitely interesting to see cello by him here. 15 to 20,000 is not a bad price really. Be interesting to see the condition report of that. So there are some interesting opportunities around. Cello by Sebastian Klotz II, 1781. 10 to 15 on that. Cello by Barrett Norman, London 1714. Wow, so we're kind of another really early English instrument there. You can see behind the fingerboard is kind of this typical Barrett Norman kind of inlay of design they had on viols and other instruments, similar to what's on the back here. It looks like it's in need of substantial work. That's a really interesting scroll. That's very nice. 5 to 7. Repairs to table ribs, back and peg box, sound post crack in back and table. Yeah, I mean, look at that. That is in really quite a terrible condition. I think that you would have to probably spend over £10,000 to probably get that back in order. I mean, it might well be quite a nice instrument when it's done, but that is a bit of a risk. But interesting nevertheless. It's a Colin Mazat, always popular. Some more bows here. Let's kind of go back, so we don't want to keep everyone for hours looking at stuff, because you can obviously look at everything yourself as well, which is quite useful. Oh, it's just a random bow they've got there, a lot 137, so that was a bit of a weird one. Charles Husson. Fine Italian cello, possibly by Gaetano Antoniazzi, Cremona or Milan. Okay, 80 to 120. It's quite a lot of money for a kind of a possible attribution, some might say. Cello by Thomas Kennedy, so 1800. Nice kind of English cello there. Cello by John Betts, so another good English cello. George Panormo. Wow, this is a really good kind of collection of English makers. This is a nice looking instrument. Panormo stuff, obviously. It's quite popular. Cello attributed to Augusto Leone, Rome 1900. Can't speak. It's quite kind of narrow and long looking instrument there. Length of back 763. Yeah, that is quite long. Another Colin Mazat there. Won't get into that too much. A fine and rare cello by Nicholas Lupo, Orleans, circa 1793. 200 to 300,000 there. Arguably the premier French maker, the French Stradivari, although people may start to prefer the Violin stuff, Violin workshop, but I think Lupo, really beautiful instruments. Okay, double bass by Pier Luigi Galetti, Cremona, 1987. Do wonder if we've seen this before, not sure. 10 to 15. Classical guitar, that's interesting. By Hernandez y Aguado, Madrid, 1971. 25 to 35 on that. I'm not kind of up on the prices of fine classical instruments there. A few books that we can just skip by, I think, for now. Mandolin by Luigi Emberger, Rome, 1929, 3 to 5. Seems a fair amount. Now we're on to some bows here, so we can skip back to our bow avoidance plan here. So let's have a look what we've got here. 152. So we've got Knopf bow here, Hill bow, Nürnberger Bazaar, attributed to Picat Mayer, Bazaar, Dominique Picat, Hills, another Sartre there, but let's not look at another one. Weichhold JTL, Huchard, more Sartre, Huchard, Frère. Let's have a look at this bow here. Silver mounted violin bow by Ivano Conti, after taught. Okay, 1500 to 2000 on that. It's got a certificate from 2023. More a Lamy pair. Let's have a look at this silver mounted Violin bow by Joseph Alfred Lamouper. It's got Pierre Guillaume certificate of Brussels, so you either want the Cabinet d'Archetier or the Pierre Guillaume certificate for a French bow, really. Nuremberg and more hill bows there, another Tubbs bow. So interesting. Back into instruments now, why not? Violin, Landolfi School, Milan, circa 1760, 20 to 30 on that. That is a curious looking violin. I quite like that. That's kind of my kind of thing, I think. It's got a slightly odd outline to it, though. Slightly curious. But I quite like it. Right, good, a nice Dutch violin. Violin by Hendrik Jacobs, Amsterdam, circa 1690, 50 to 20,000 on that. 356. Post crack in table with patch. I really like some of this stuff. The kind of the Dutch instruments, really interesting. 1690, so 17th century violin for not a crazy amount. Looks like it's probably needs a bit of work, but I think it's an interesting one. Max Moller there. Widam, one of the kind of good German makers. Violin by Orsolio Gotti, Pieve di Cento, 1919. 20 to 30 on that. A violin by Corrado Gritti Candi, Genoa, 1948, after Guadagnini. 12 to 18 on that one there. Violin by Constantino Solani, Ascoli Piceno, 1930s. It's got a bid on that of 8,000 there. Another Colomazat. Violin attributed to Giuseppe Milani Turin, 1890. Carry on a bit further. Violin by Nicholas Vio Mirko, circa 1825. 20 to 30,000 on that. That's actually a very beautiful back on that. It's a nice looking instrument. Some interesting lines there actually. 360 length of back. Rampal certificate, which is the good certificate for French instruments for sure. Gandon Bernadette, 18 to 25,000, like really nice quality making, reliable making. Violin by Luigi Lanaro, Padua, 1948. Violin by Guido Leoni, San Benedetto del Tronto, 1950. Kind of interesting outline on that one. Roth there. Violin by Fernando Ferroni, Florence, 1936. 18 to 25 on that. Cool looking back on that one. Violin by Enrico Orselli, Pesaro, 1951. Violin Naples, circa 1830. That is kind of interesting back on that. 6,000 to start. Violin by Michael Guarino, Foggia, 1856, or Foggia. 4 to 6 on that. Someone's bidding on that already. Violin by Francesco Mandrilli. There. That's some really interesting choice of wood for the back there. Mandrilli seems to be an unrecorded maker, but his proximity to Genoa and the characteristics such as internal linings running over the block's deeply fluted edges suggests he was familiar with the work of the Candis. His death certificate from the Cassini municipality lists his profession as luthier and shows he was born in 1902 and died at the young age of 36 in 1938. Okay, interesting to see. Unrecorded makers, economists are there. Violin by Paolo di Barbieri, Genoa, 1922. So quite nice making. I'm pretty sure we've seen this before. It's heavily fluted F holes there. Violin by Arturo Fracassi, Rimini. So a lot of kind of 20th century Italian stuff in this auction. Violin circuit 1750. Definitely have a look at the catalogue yourself. I'm just kind of seeing if anything is interesting. Lots of this stuff I'm pretty sure we've seen before if you've looked at the other catalogues, but interesting nevertheless. Violin by Enrico Clodovio Melegari. George Allman there. Krask violin, 3 to 5 on that. I think George Krask is super interesting maker, but I think it's just some of the violins are not super exciting. Violin probably, or Central Italian, circa 1820. That's a big chunky scroll. Bonkers F-holes. 356, yeah, interesting. 3 to 5. Violin by Carlo Antonio Testore, Milan, circa 1750, 30 to 50 on that, 28,000. Certificate of Florian Leonhard. This is quite an odd looking violin to me, but let's see if it sells. Violin, possibly Franco-Italian, okay, whatever that kind of means. Violin by Carlo Tononi, Venice, 1726, 25 to 35 on that. Current bid is 25. That's a cool looking violin as well. 353 length of back. Violin probably Naples, circa 1900. 5 to 8. Cool scroll. Another Chipotle Viome there. Violin probably Central Italy, circa 1800. Pretty cool scroll. Interesting back there, 359. Some post crack in a table. Violin by Gaetano Scarabotto, Parma, circa 1910, 10 to 15,000 on that. It's got a certificate of Carlson and Newman in Cremona, quite regarded experts. Nice back on that. The ex Dr. Nico Versteeg, a violin by Matthias Hornsteiner, Mitterwald, 1786, 4 to 6 on that. That's a nice back on that. Not going to read all that blurb on that. Violin probably by Vincenzo Postiglione, Naples, 1897, 30 to 40,000. It's a lot of high estimates for kind of unknowns. Violin London, circa 1760, with a Carcassi label. Interesting. It's kind of a curious looking violin. Tarazi School. Violin by Enrico Marchetti, probably Kjorgner, circa 1910, after Testore. Definitely not pronouncing that well at all. Back to school for me. Violin by Pierre and Hippolyte Silvestre there, Lyon, 1838, 18 to 25 on that. 16,000 to start. Carry on a bit more. Violin after Grancino, late 19th century. Derazi. I'm skipping a lot, so this French stuff. Violin after Testore. Violin by Giovanni Battista Rogeri, Brescia, circa 1690, 60 to 90,000. That is very cool looking violin there. Dendro there as well. Violin by Antonio Scarbi, Rome, 1901. Paul Bailly again there. Benoit Fleury. Guadagnini School, circa 1780, 15 to 20,000 on that. Yeah, nice choice of wood there for the back. Said sometimes its estimates seem a bit high. Violin Castello School, Genoa, circa 1770. 812. Violin, probably Flemish, circa 1783 to 5. I do think that we might have seen this one before as well. Violin Hopf School. The Ex Joe Bouillon, a violin by Ferdinand Galliano, Naples, circa 1775. 45 to 65,000 on that. Cool scroll. So 42 to start. Violin by Alessandro Mazzadri Ferrara, circa 1710. Starting bids 90. This I actually really like. This could be my favourite instrument so far, actually. Certificate Florian Leonhard there, 355 length the back. That's an interesting looking violin. Right, a violin by Jean-Baptiste Vuillaume, Paris, circa 1857/8. Current bid 120. Everyone is all over the Vuillaumes these days, really are. It's almost a guaranteed sale. Whichever model it is, it's guaranteed to sell. So that's interesting. Right, an important violin by Andrea Guarneri, Cremona, 1684, 200 to 300,000 there. No bids so far. 353 length back. Probably my favourite maker, actually. Andrea Guarneri, especially the scrolls, which I think are amazing. This is a nice violin that I'd quite like to see in person. Hopefully I can get an opportunity to kind of see this. Really interesting F-holes there. Yeah, really nice looking violin. I like that a lot. And that is actually the end. That is the last lot. So there we go. That was a really kind of brief, not super exciting overview of this Brompton's auction. An interesting mix of stuff. Some pretty curious things. Some nice kind of old Italian violins and violas. A few interesting cellos. Definitely a few curious bows as well. Just took a really brief view of that. But definitely check it out yourself if you're interested in buying something or looking at something. Like I said, this upcoming weekend, there is a viewing. I don't know the exact days. Maybe there's Saturday and Sunday for this viewing, or one day or the other. I don't know what it is, but the viewings for this auction are at some point, I think, this weekend. So check out the information on that. So yeah, that's a quick overview. Thanks a lot for watching. Really appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time. Bye.